Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. On our first wedding anniversary, my husband Michael Grant brought home a pregnant woman named Emily Summers. Michael claimed that her husband, Chris Walker, had died in an explosion trying to save him. He said that taking care of Emily from now on was our responsibility. To make room for Emily, I gave up our bedroom and slept on a bench in the living room, handling all of her daily needs. When she got a craving for fresh Korean carp, Michael didn't even blink. He ordered me to go to a market 50 miles away to get it for her. When the factory was promoting technical staff, Michael gave the spot that was supposed to be mine to Emily, who couldn't even read a single word. Then, while working underground, I was caught in a mining accident and my leg was crushed. Michael took the compensation money and used it to buy baby formula for Emily's unborn child. In utter despair, I attempted suicide by poisoning myself. Michael was grief-stricken when he found out, but not long after, he still went through with the marriage registration with Emily. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the very day Michael brought Emily to move into our home. Seeing Michael standing up for her again, I let out a cold laugh in my heart. If Michael wants to repay a life debt, then he can do it on his own. Olivia, what are you standing there for? Come over here and help. Michael's voice stabbed at my ears like a knife. He stood at my doorway, drenched in sweat, carrying several cloth bags. Emily stood behind him, head low, her large pregnant belly clearly visible. Memories surged into my mind like a tide, and in that instant, everything became clear. I had been reborn back to the very start of this nightmare, the day Michael brought the so-called wife of his savior into our home. Are you deaf? Michael barked again when I didn't move, his voice thick with impatience. If you want something done, sometimes you just have to force your way through. I gripped the door frame tightly, my nails digging deep into the wood. No, it's convenient for outsiders to live in my home. Michael's face instantly darkened. Olivia, what the hell are you doing? This is Chris's wife and child. He died saving me. We owe him a lifetime. That's your debt, not mine, I replied coldly. Neighbors started opening their doors, poking their heads out into the hallway. Emily chose the perfect moment to peek halfway out from behind Michael. Please don't be mad at me, sis, she said softly, every word floating just far enough for the bystanders to hear. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. It's just that my poor Chris, if it weren't for him saving Michael. Her voice trembled slightly, her eyes rimmed red, shoulders quivering gently. I stared coldly at her pitiful little performance. The crowd began whispering among themselves. Look at her, pregnant and now widowed. It's heartbreaking. Michael's wife is being too cruel. That man gave his life to save her husband, and she won't even offer them a place to stay. That's heartless. Michael caught on to the shift in public opinion, raised his voice. Olivia, for someone who went to college, how can you not understand basic gratitude? You're humiliating me in front of all my coworkers. I let out a cold chuckle and stood tall. Michael Grant, if you want respect, go earn it yourself. If you want to repay a favor, do it on your own. Don't drag me into it. There's no room here. Please take your benefactor and leave. Michael's face turned ash and his fingers trembled. Fine, Olivia, just wait. You'll regret this. Come on, Emily, let's go to the guest house, he snapped, grabbing the luggage and dragging her away without looking back. The gossiping voices of the neighbors grew louder. What a shame. Michael's been so good to her. She doesn't know how lucky she is. She's pushing away a good man. She'll be the one crying later. I slammed the door shut with a loud bang, slid down against it, and collapsed onto the floor. My hands trembled uncontrollably, and at last the tears came pouring down. In my past life, it was my kindness that allowed them to take over step by step, until they devoured every part of my life. When I first married Michael, he was known at the coal plant as the perfect husband, attentive, devoted, and always giving in to me. But it didn't take long for that to change. When Michael Grant was inspecting the mining zone, a sudden equipment failure caused an explosion. It was Chris Walker who shielded him, sacrificing his own life in the blast. Overcome with guilt, Michael applied for the highest level of benefits and compensation for Chris's family. He even arranged for Chris's pregnant wife to get a job at the coal plant. From that day on, Emily Summers moved into our home. I owe Chris, Michael said, his voice heavy with guilt. It's only right that we take care of her and the baby she's carrying. I agreed. Back then, I hadn't yet cleared a room for Emily. I had no choice but to sleep on the bench in the living room. In the dead of winter, with temperatures dropping to -30 degrees, she got a craving for fresh crucian carp soup. Without a second thought, Michael ordered me to go 50 miles to the nearest market to buy it. On the way back, I fell into a hole in the ice and suffered severe frostbite. My uterus was damaged beyond repair. I would never be able to have children. Michael tried to comfort me, saying it was fine that Emily's child would be mine too. When the factory promoted technical staff, Michael gave the position that should have been mine to Emily, someone who couldn't even read a word. The night I objected, he reassigned me to work in the mines, claiming I needed to be taught a lesson. That's when the accident happened. A collapse underground crushed my legs. Michael took the compensation money and used it to buy baby formula for Emily's unborn child. I left with no legs, could only lie in a hospital bed, starving and in pain. In the end, I drank pesticide and ended my life in despair. Now that I've been given a second chance, I will never walk that same path again. If Michael wants to repay a debt, let him do it himself. 1 week later, Michael stood at my door with a paper bag in his hand, wearing the smile that once melted my heart. "Olivia," he said in a softer voice with a hint of forced warmth. "Look, I asked someone to get this for you. It's the newest style wool scarf. Take it as my apology. Don't be mad anymore, okay?" As I accepted the bag, a sliver of hope unexpectedly crept into my chest. "Olivia, you know it's really inconvenient for Emily, a pregnant woman, to stay at the guest house. People are talking and it's not pleasant. Don't you think we should consider letting her move back in? We can't just let others talk behind our backs, saying we mistreat the wife of the man who saved my life." My heart went cold. So the scarf was just a ploy. I opened the paper bag and was speechless. The so-called new scarf was already frayed along the edges and stained with clear lipstick marks. "Emily said the color didn't suit her," he explained with a chuckle. "She asked me to give it to you. Isn't it beautiful? It's practically made for you." Michael smiled as if he were being gentle, but his eyes were filled with smug charity. A wave of nausea rose from my stomach to my throat. My fingers started to tremble. What did they take me for, a trash can? What did Michael think I was? I slammed the scarf to the floor with force. "You came here just to insult me with this?" The smile froze on his face, his brows furrowed. "Insult you? This is a good scarf. Do you know how hard it was to get? I don't want your leftovers, you ungrateful woman." Michael's face flushed red with anger, his voice suddenly rising several octaves. "She offered her favorite scarf to you. And this is how you treat her? The wife of the man who saved my life? You must be out of your mind." I stared at the rage in his eyes and let out a cold laugh. "Get out and don't ever come back to this house again."
Fine, Olivia.
"You'd better be ready to live with this for the rest of your life," Michael shouted, stomping his foot in frustration. He shot me a furious glare before slamming the door behind him. The next day at work, everyone looked at me differently. "They say she kicked the savior's wife out of the house," someone whispered. "She even threw away a scarf that was gifted with kindness." What a real-life farmer and snake story. So cold-hearted. Just proves that educated women are the most vicious, calculating, and petty. My coworkers whispered behind my back. Emily's rumors had already spread like wildfire. She stood in the middle of the group, head slightly lowered, eyes glistening with tears as if she'd suffered some unspeakable injustice. Her tears drew plenty of sympathetic glances. A few days later, the production department at the factory organized a group dinner. They said it was to ease the tension between us, but in truth it was just Michael Grant's way of trying to patch up his good guy image in front of everyone and to pressure me at the same time. I didn't want to go at first, but then I thought better of it. I couldn't let Emily Summers monopolize the narrative, twisting black into white. As soon as Emily saw me, she rushed over to apologize. "Olivia, I really didn't know about the scarf. Michael made that decision on his own." She looked at me with teary eyes.
"Olivia, I'm sorry.
I had no idea he would just give it to you like that. He meant well, please don't blame him. Don't be mad at me either, okay?" Michael stood behind her, eyes wide in fake shock, like he was hearing it for the first time. And somehow, despite myself, A brief moment of softness crept into my heart. Forget it. Let's not bring up the past, I said. Just as my voice fell, Emily suddenly let out a startled cry. Her teacup tipped over, sending scalding hot water spilling directly toward my handbag. I'm so sorry. I was just nervous. I couldn't react in time. I stared in horror as the water soaked into the bag. A rush of panic hit me. I scrambled to open it, pulling out a photo now so wet and blurry it was barely recognizable. It was the only photo ever taken of my parents together while they were still alive, my last tie to them, the final piece of my past. As I touched the ruined photo with trembling fingers, it felt like knives stabbing into my heart. You did this on purpose, I said sharply, looking up. At that very moment I saw it clearly. A flicker of triumph flashing in Emily's eyes. Olivia, how can you say that about me? She cried, putting on her usual pitiful act. I swear I didn't mean it. How could you wrongly accuse me like this? Tears streamed down her face as if she'd been grievously wronged. That's enough. Michael barked. Olivia Shao, have you made a big enough scene yet? Just a photo. Is it worth all this drama? Emily already apologized. What more do you want? He stepped in front of Emily like a shield, glaring at me with fury. Over some crumpled photo? You want to embarrass her like this? Can't you show some decency? Every word from him told me exactly what I was worth in his eyes. A precious keepsake of mine was to him just some old picture, nothing more. I laughed. Whatever lingering warmth I had left in my heart vanished without a trace. Michael Grant, I want a divorce. He was stunned. Olivia, what's gotten into you lately? Even if you're jealous, there's no need to go that far. I'm serious. His face turned an ashen gray. Pointing at me, he shouted, You dare? You're insane. You want a divorce over a photo? Think very carefully about the consequences. I didn't bother arguing. I turned and walked out. When I got home and began packing, I came across a photo frame of my father and suddenly noticed that something was missing. The pure gold medal awarded by the coal company was gone. It had always sat beside the frame. That medal had been awarded to my father for solving a major technical problem in the most dangerous section of the mine, saving the lives of hundreds. My chest tightened. I began trembling as I frantically searched every corner of the house. It was gone. That medal had been earned. With my father's life, it was the only thing he left behind for me. I collapsed to the floor, memories flashing through my mind. Everyone who had been in and out of the house recently. Michael, Emily. A cold chill crept up from the soles of my feet. Clenching my jaw, I pushed myself up. I suddenly remembered overhearing Emily a few days ago asking someone where to sell old gold jewelry and who paid the best rates. Suspicion turned into certainty. I dropped everything and rushed to the guest house. The lobby was empty. I found Emily's room, the door slightly ajar. I pushed it open and quickly began searching through her things. In the lining of a brown paper package, my fingers brushed against something familiar. It was my father's medal, and next to it a receipt, a gold item valuation slip. Footsteps sounded outside the door. What are you doing? Emily Summers burst into the room screaming. I stared her down as I clutched my father's medal. I'm taking back what belongs to my father. Her face went pale instantly. Olivia, this is all a misunderstanding, she said, her voice trembling. I was just curious and wanted to take a look. I was planning to give it back when you were in a better mood. A crowd had gathered in the hallway to watch the scene unfold. It was Michael, she added quickly. He said you'd been emotionally unstable lately and asked me to keep it safe. How could you accuse me like this? Tears rolled down her face just on cue. I let out a cold laugh. She really had the nerve to make something like that up. The murmurs in the crowd started to grow. Olivia Zhao's just using her father's old reputation to bully a widow. Disgusted, I looked up. Michael pushed his way through the crowd. His eyes flicked to the medal in my hand, and his face darkened. Olivia, how could you just barge into Emily's room like this? She stole my father's medal. Don't be ridiculous, he snapped, frowning, but his tone turned soft as he turned to comfort Emily. Don't cry, Emily. Be careful, don't upset yourself and risk the baby. We're all family here. She was just holding on to it for safekeeping. What difference does it make whose hands it's in? Emily sniffled. Olivia's father was so respected at the plant. I'd never dare steal from him. I felt like I'd fallen into an icy lake. So this was what they thought of it. Just a little trinket worth tearing everything apart over? She's making a big deal over nothing, someone chimed in, looking at all the people twisting the truth. I suddenly laughed. Out of my way, I shoved past Michael. The factory had just posted a notice for the upcoming technical staff selection. My heart pounded. This position was my father's legacy, and for me it was more than a job. It was the dream I buried deep inside. In my last life, I watched as Michael handed it to Emily, who could barely read. When I dared to speak up, he immediately reassigned me to the most dangerous part of the mine. Now, with a second chance, I wasn't about to repeat the same mistake. I signed up for the selection as soon as I did. Michael came home, eyes full of unease. Olivia, I want to talk about the technical staff position. Look, Emily's a widow. She's pregnant. Life's already so hard for her. That role isn't just a job. It's security. Can't you give it up just this once? When I didn't respond, he continued. Chris died saving me. I owe him more than I can ever repay. We have to help Emily and her baby. I let out a sharp laugh. So you want to pay your debt using my future? Michael's eyes narrowed. He lowered his voice. Your dad already had his glory days as a technical lead. Isn't that enough for one family? Let someone else who really needs it have the opportunity. That's exactly why I have to fight for it, I replied. Because my father was a true professional, and this role should be earned through real skills and knowledge. Michael slammed his hand on the table. You're so selfish. Can't you think about anyone else for once? You're seriously going to fight the widow of the man who saved my life? No, I said firmly. I won't give in. Michael's face flushed bright red. I run the production department now. If you keep acting like this, don't blame me for what happens next. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. A week before the selection, the factory held a pre-evaluation meeting. I had spent days carefully preparing my technical report, but just before the meeting, Michael accidentally spilled tea all over it. Sorry, he said insincerely. You'll have to prepare a new one. I stayed up all night working on a replacement, but the next morning I was informed that the deadline had been moved up. The report had actually been due the day before. The rules changed, Emily told me cheerfully. I rushed to Michael's office. He didn't even look up. Rings are rings. I clenched my jaw and swallowed the humiliation. At the pre-election meeting, I was placed last on the presentation schedule. The 10 or so speakers before me had already exhausted the judge's patience. I had barely started speaking when I was abruptly interrupted. Michael glanced at his watch. It's getting late. We'll review the materials carefully, he said dismissively. On the day of the final selection, the atmosphere in the hall was solemn. The plant director cleared his throat, and the room quieted. Today we will announce the new list of promoted technical staff after a comprehensive evaluation. The selected candidates are as follows. Everyone held their breath. In the electromechanical department, Leo Lin. In the inspection department, Victor Zhang. In the production department, Olivia Jao. Hold on. Michael suddenly stood up, cutting the director off mid-sentence. All eyes turned toward him. His face was a stormy gray. Director, our production department only had one spot. I nominated Emily Summers. There must be some mistake with the list. The hall erupted in noise. Wait, isn't Director Grant backing someone other than his own wife? There's something going on between him and that Emily, isn't there? Heard they're staying together at the guest house. House whispers buzz from all sides. Michael's forehead pulsed with anger. Suddenly, Emily burst from the crowd and dropped to her knees in front of me. Please, Olivia, I'm begging you. Let me live. This position is all I have to hope for. Must you take even this from me? She clutched her belly, choking on her sobs. My husband died saving Michael. I don't care what happens to me, but I'm carrying his baby. What will happen to us, his widow and his child, if we lose this? Then she threw herself forward, banging her head against the ground in a dramatic bow. Gasps rippled through the room. Some looked at her with pity. Others stared doubtfully at Michael. Michael rushed over to lift her up, visibly distressed. Turning to me, he said, Olivia, if this is the price I pay to make it up to you, then so be it. You're strong. You can work anywhere and still be fine. Even if you end up shoveling coal underground, you won't starve. But Emily, she's fragile. She's pregnant. She can't handle the dust and heavy labor down in the mines. If she gets the technical staff position, she can stay in the office where I can look after her. Wouldn't that be better? He then turned to the stage, facing the director. Director, I formally request that Emily Summers be appointed as the technical staff member from the production department. But the director frowned. Michael, the final decision wasn't made by the plant. He looked awkward standing there, shifting uncomfortably. This list was approved directly by the city leaders. Michael clenched his fists, eyes darting to me with barely restrained fury. What did you do behind the scenes? Before I could respond, a loud cough came from the back of the hall, interrupting his accusation. A middle-aged man in a gray mouse-style suit walked calmly to the front. The room instantly fell silent. The director rushed forward, wiping the sweat from his brow. Deputy Director Zhang, we were just addressing the situation. Deputy Director Xiong simply raised his hand, his gaze sharp and unwavering as it locked onto Michael. Are you questioning a decision made by your superiors? My heart leapt into my throat. Cold sweat beaded in my palms. Michael's expression twitched. The arrogance he had just moments ago vanished in an instant. Deputy Director Xiang's voice wasn't loud, but every word hit like a hammer. I've read the papers Olivia Shao published in the Coal Technology Journal. Her proposal for optimizing the gas outburst early warning system offers valuable insights for improving mine safety across the entire city. I could barely breathe. I had never imagined that all the work I'd done silently behind the scenes would be taken so seriously. Then Zhang's gaze turned cold. But you, Michael Grant, Deputy Section Chief, you've repeatedly abused your position to serve your personal interests. You even tried to assign a technical position that demands real expertise to someone who doesn't understand the basic operational procedures. Michael's face turned from red to pale. His lips trembled, but no words came. RDS came out. Emily, still half kneeling on the floor, had lost all trace of smugness. Terror now filled her eyes. A fierce sense of relief surged in my chest. Years of suppression, humiliation, and being overlooked finally began to dissolve. Images of my past life, full of shame and injustice, flashed rapidly through my mind like a reel of film. Zhang turned to me, a warm glint in his eyes. Olivia, your father was one of our heroes, and now you carry forward his legacy of dedication and excellence. That's exactly the kind of talent this city needs. My nose stung with emotion. Dad, can you see this? Your daughter didn't let you down. Straightening my posture, I gave Deputy Director Zhang a respectful nod. Thank you, sir. But as I looked out, I saw only the ashen face of Michael Grant, his mouth still twitching, desperately trying to find something to save face. But I wasn't going to give him another chance. I spoke each word with deliberate clarity. Michael Grant, since our values don't align, let's get a divorce. The room fell silent again. You could hear a few shocked gasps. Michael snapped his head up, his eyes wide with disbelief. Olivia Shao, stop this nonsense. We'll talk when we get home. I let out a cold laugh. There's nothing to talk about. I'll prepare the divorce papers as soon as possible. From the stage, Deputy Director Zhang's mouth curved into the faintest approving smile, as if he was pleased with my decisiveness. The crowd began to stir, some exchanging looks of gossip-laced excitement, others glancing at Michael with thinly veiled contempt. The meeting ended in a strange, awkward atmosphere. Afterward, when I got home, Michael followed close behind. Olivia, please don't be mad, he said as he approached, his voice tinged with desperation. He even dropped to one knee, looking just like Emily had earlier at the meeting. I promise I'll treat you better from now on. I pulled out the divorce papers I had already prepared. We'll split the assets evenly, but the house stays with me. It was allocated by my father's company. Michael's face twisted. Olivia, can't we just talk this through? There's nothing left to discuss. You signed the papers. Let's end this cleanly, I said. The moment he stood up, the gentle mask he'd worn shattered. You really won't take the olive branch, huh? Fine. After the divorce, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Ungrateful, cold-hearted. I sneered. Oh really? I wonder what Deputy Director Zhang would think of how you tried to suppress actual talent and rigged the technical staff selection. Michael's face went deathly pale. Panic flickered in his eyes. Just then there was a sudden rapid knock at the door. It was Emily, standing there with her belly round and prominent, a weak smile on her lips. Olivia, she said softly, as if we were still close friends, I came to talk to you. I wanted to ask you to give Michael another chance. She stroked her belly gently, her eyes sparkling with a twisted satisfaction. He really loves you. He only feels guilty toward me. We're all one family, right? Why split the house into yours, mine, or his? I don't want to hear another word, I said flatly. Get out, both of you. Her face turned pale suddenly. She clutched her stomach and bent over. Ah, it hurts. Michael rushed over to catch her. Emily, what's wrong? Then he turned and glared at me, eyes full of venom. Olivia Xiao, you really are heartless. You can't even show mercy to a pregnant woman. Are you trying to kill my benefactor and her baby? After that incident, under pressure from friends and colleagues, Michael finally agreed to the divorce. He moved in with Emily, who of course still dropped by occasionally just to disgust me. Olivia, judging by the way you look, I bet you're like a dead fish in bed, huh? She said, her tone dripping with mockery. No wonder Michael was always so pent up with you. With me, he nearly dies from how good it is. She tilted her chin with pride, eyes gleaming. Want to know a secret? We've been sleeping together for a long time. A sharp pain pierced my chest. Even though I'd already suspected it, hearing it out loud still sent a wave of cold through me. Get out. Not long after, good news came from the factory. I was being promoted to deputy director. Olivia, the leadership team is very impressed with your technical abilities, the director said, patting my shoulder. I should have been thrilled. This was the kind of role most people could only dream of. But instead, all I felt was a strange emptiness. The announcement about the upcoming national restructuring felt like a spring breeze brushing over me. I'd like to resign, I said calmly. The director looked stunned. Olivia, is this because of your divorce? Everyone understands what you've been through. I shook my head. I just want to see what the rest of the world looks like. The regret on the director's face was unmistakable. I nodded, more certain than I had ever been the day I completed the resignation process. Emily Summers hung up a banner celebrating my departure. She stood proudly among the crowd as if she had just won some grand prize. I merely smiled. A weight I'd carried for years finally lifted from my chest. After leaving the coal plant, I moved south to Shenzhen. I got a job as a factory line worker at a clothing plant. The work on the assembly line was dull and repetitive, but I felt more at ease than I ever had before. Every night, lying in the cramped dormitory bed and staring up at the unfamiliar ceiling, I slept deeply and peacefully. When Deputy Director Zhang heard about where I'd gone, he personally called me. Olivia, he said sincerely, your decision both disappoints me and earns my respect. He urged me to start paying attention to policy reforms and the stock market. Opportunities always belong to those who are prepared. I took his words to heart and began teaching myself about finance, diving into the movements of the stock market. The day I bought my first stock, my palms were drenched with nervous sweat. But 3 months later it quintupled in value. That was my first bucket of gold. I soon realized the massive potential in Shenzhen's booming electronics industry. So I made the decision to use my stock profits to start an electronics processing factory in the early 90s. Shenzhen was a city that never slept, pulsing with the energy of reform and opportunity. I walked through electronics markets for research, dazzled by the endless components and possibilities. Then, out of nowhere, a familiar face appeared in the crowd, and I stopped dead in my tracks. Liam Lee. I could hardly believe my eyes when he turned around. The surprise on his face mirrored mine. A childhood friend here in a foreign city. Olivia Jiao, it's really you. His eyes sparkled with disbelief and joy. We found a small tea house and caught up, sharing our stories of moving south. Do you remember how we promised each other we'd go out and take on the world someday? He asked with a smile. Memories came flooding back. Those innocent childhood dreams suddenly didn't feel so far-fetched anymore. When I shared my plan to start an electronics factory, his eyes lit up with excitement. I've got the technical know-how and you've got a head for business. We'd complement each other perfectly. The chemistry between us made my heart stir. Then let's partner up, I said, extending my hand. Without hesitation, he grasped it, his palm warm, steady, and full of promise. The next day, he resigned from his job and moved into the small warehouse I had rented. It was an old, rundown space filled with second-hand equipment, but also filled with hope. We got up every day at 4 a.m. and didn't rest until 2 a.m. the next morning. Strangely, those exhausting days felt sweet. "You must be tired, have some water," he would say, handing me a cup that was always perfectly warm. The day our first order came in, we were so overwhelmed with emotion that we cried in each other's arms. Orders increased, and our staff grew from 3 to 30. We moved into a larger factory. Late at night, when we worked overtime, Liam always insisted on walking me back to the dorm. His gentle looks and casual touches slowly thawed the ice that had frozen over my heart. One night, as he walked me back under the streetlights, he summoned his courage and gently took my hand. I didn't pull away. "Olivia," he said, voice calm but clear, "can I pursue you?" I didn't respond aloud, I just held his hand tighter. That was the best answer I could give. That night, the moon was especially bright, casting its soft glow on our smiling faces. The business gradually found its rhythm, and so did our relationship. As we spent day after day working side by side, our bond deepened. But I couldn't shake a lingering unease. I was still afraid that happiness might once again be ripped away. One day, a new worker joined our factory. He claimed he had come from my old coal plant back home. He kept talking excitedly about the latest news from there. "Miss Xiao, you really had great foresight leaving that place. It was the smartest thing you ever did." Puzzled, I asked, "Why are the coal reserves back home all but exhausted now?" And with the plant's poor management, the coal plant had been turned into a pig farm. "Your scumbag ex-husband, Michael Grant, he couldn't bear to leave. Now he's working there as a gatekeeper." But the most bizarre thing, Emily Summers, when she saw how far Michael had fallen, she took their son and ran off with the PL's accountant, Mr. Tsiong. I kept my voice calm. "Oh, is that so?" The most ironic part is that kid wasn't even Chris Walker's. No wonder he never looked like Chris. Emily's personal life had always been a mess. Even she probably didn't know who the child's father really was. After Emily ran off, Michael completely broke down. He started drinking nonstop, wandering around like a madman, yelling about being wrong to anyone who would listen. All his life, Michael had been obsessed with repaying a so-called debt, but it turned out to be a lie. A flicker of emotion stirred in my chest, but it quickly faded. That night, Liam once again walked me back to the dorm. Not long after, as we strolled quietly under the moonlight, he suddenly knelt down on one knee. "Olivia," he said, "marry me." Tears blurred my vision. The scars of the past had finally truly healed. This time I chose to believe in love. Our wedding was simple and intimate. We only invited the factory workers. There was no extravagant setup, no fake smiles, just sincerity. Liam held my hand, his eyes full of truth and warmth. In that moment, I felt nothing but gratitude for being reborn, for not making the same choices I once had. The breeze in Shenzhen carried the scent of the sea and swept away the last remnants of the past. One time on a business trip to Hangzhou, I saw Emily again. It was late at night on a quiet street. I spotted her wearing a cheap, tight red dress stretched over her now bloated figure. Heavy makeup barely hid the years written on her face. She stood under a flickering streetlight, eyes shifting nervously, offering services for 20 yuan a time. From the shadows, I watched a middle-aged man approach her. After a brief exchange, they quickly disappeared into a dark alley. Not long after, a piercing scream echoed from that direction. I rushed toward the mouth of the alley and saw the man gripping Emily by the throat, shouting curses. "You filthy whore. Charging for trash like you." Emily struggled, eyes wide with terror and despair. "Please, I need to eat too," she pleaded in a faint, trembling voice. The man shoved her away violently, slapping her across the face. Her body slumped to the ground like a rag doll, collapsing into a puddle of filthy water. He zipped up his pants, pulled a few coins from his pocket, and threw them at her face with contempt. The coin struck her forehead, leaving a small bloody scratch. That scene brought back sharp memories of Emily's cruel words and malicious tricks back at the coal plant. How different everything was now. Strangely, I felt a pang of pity. Just then, a man with ached blonde hair staggered into the alley. He wore knockoff boots and dragged one foot as he walked, a half-smoked cigarette dangling from his mouth. His eyes were sharp and vicious. Emily saw him and immediately froze in terror. She scrambled to collect the coins off the ground. "How much did you make today?" the blonde man asked coldly. Emily trembled, shaking her head. "Not much. Business was bad." Before she could finish, he grabbed the little pouch in her hand and violently dumped its contents. A few coins and half a box of condoms. "This is it? You hiding money from me?" he roared, then kicked her hard in the chest. She slammed into the wall, a trickle of blood trailing from the corner of her mouth. Then her eyes locked with mine. Recognition flickered in them, dark and bitter. Her lips moved as if to speak, but no words came. They simply closed again in silence. Back when Emily had run off with the accountant, life had been good for a while, but it didn't last long. The accountant, Mr. Zong, got hooked on drugs. He gambled away everything they had and even used Emily Summers as collateral in a debt. That blonde young man? He was Emily's son. Growing up, he was constantly exposed to chaos. He saw his stepfather gambling and his own mother selling herself. Eventually, he went down the wrong path. He joined a biker gang that specialized in mugging pedestrians. He had been in and out of juvenile detention several times. He had just gotten out of prison and was now back, demanding money from his mother. I watched as he grabbed Emily by the hair and barked, "Where's that madam who brings you clients? Isn't she the one who lines them up for you every day?" Emily shook her head in despair. Her face was twisted in pain as her scalp was yanked back. I turned and walked away, but just before rounding the corner, I looked back one last time, just in time to see the blonde thug dragging Emily off into the darkness. Years later, after a company annual banquet, I stood outside our office building waiting for my driver. A slouched figure slowly walked toward me. That familiar sound of footsteps made my body instinctively tense. "Olivia, it's been so many years. You've changed so much," said a hoarse voice. Michael Grant. His eyes were filled with a complicated emotion I couldn't quite place. "You're so young and beautiful now, I almost didn't recognize you." I looked at him coldly. "What do you want?" The wind tousled his graying hair. He reached up, trying to smooth it down with trembling fingers, only making it messier. "I've seen you on TV. I never thought you'd become so successful. You're incredible," he said, eyes lowered. The determination that once filled them had faded into pleading. "Olivia, I miss you." For a moment, a wave of anger surged through me. Now he missed me? Isn't it a little too late? I laughed bitterly and watched the light in his eyes dim. "Back then, you threw me away without hesitation for Emily Summers," I said flatly. He looked down at his rough, calloused hands and said nothing. "You're only sorry. By now because you've lost everything. What's that supposed to mean to me?" Suddenly, Michael dropped to his knees right there on the sidewalk, drawing stares from passers-by. "Olivia, I really regret everything," he choked, his voice thick with tears. I was blinded by how pitiful Emily seemed. I couldn't see who she really was. Something flickered in my chest, perhaps pity, but I quickly pushed it down. My fingers trembled slightly. "All these years I felt guilty toward you," he said, lifting his head, eyes full of hope. "Now I know the one I truly love has always been you." That line was like a slap across the face, snapping me out of my momentary weakness. "You say that like you're the victim," I sneered, stepping back to put distance between us. "Like I should feel sorry for you." He paled, his lips parted, but no words came. "You wanted to look good in front of everyone, so you made me take care of Emily for your own conscience." His face drained of color, mouth trembling in silence. "And when you saw how young and wild she was, you got lustful. Don't deny it. She told me herself before we were even divorced. You two were already sleeping together." Michael clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. "Now that you see me doing well, you come crawling back with a fake apology." He dropped his gaze, humiliated, unable to lift his head. Just then my husband Liam walked over and asked, "Who's this guy?" "I don't know," I replied calmly, "some lunatic probably." Then I took Liam's arm, turned around and walked away without looking back. 3 months later, I heard from someone back home that Michael Grant had died of cancer. My heart remained still, completely calm. The sun streamed in through the window. It was the perfect light for starting anew.